Dreadnought, you said Towers of Doom was reminiscent of another map. What map would that be?
Infernal Shrines.
Hey, guess where we're going? Game number 4.
Infernal Shrines. But, you know, it's a little bit different. You know, we don't have as wild strategies, but generally speaking, yeah, a lot of diversity when it comes to compositions available here. But Jay-How, I want to talk a little bit about winning through skirmishing and through fights and objectives and kind of a macro front versus just winning the objective. Because there's something that seems to be showing through this series that we get here from Team Freedom. I think we didn't get so much out of LFM, or them versus LFM, but it is they're willing to take compositions that they know they might not win team fighting perfectly, but they're winning enough on the objective itself that they think it will pay off. I can't help but feel like the Leo in the last game is a little bit of that kind of response, and the way they acted about it. Infernal Shrines is one of the battlegrounds that strategy can pay off, and I don't know if Tempo reacted clean enough in the last game to have a response. So I actually like the fact that we got Infernal Shrines here for Game 4.
I am curious now, the way that we saw Team Freedom, after being down 0-2 in their series last weekend to LFM, they came out Infernal Shrines, they had the Gray Main, we know how much they could do. Got off to a slow start, but once they hit that stride, there was no slowing down for them. The rotations that they made were impeccable. You don't see the rotations from any other team. Maybe Tempo Storm can match them in that regard, at least in North America. I would say Dignitas still has probably the best rotations in the world on Infernal Shrines. But what we saw from Team Freedom on this battleground, it is Tempo Storm taking us there. Alex Straza comes to mind. We'll see if we get Sergeant Hammer again. But the meta within the series, obviously developing as it always does, but the meta with which they can play outside of the teams and then within themselves is the most curious point for me when it comes to Team Freedom more specifically than Tempo Storm.
I think that's a good point, and when highlighting the Gray Main approach here for Freedom that we got last week, it was very, very clean once they were able to get the rotation with that Shaman Camp on the top half. But as we had kind of painted in that series itself, I would argue that I feel like LFM should have had a better preparation towards that, and I know that if we see that Gray Main rotation in this game, Tempo is going to be the team to challenge that. Not saying that Team Freedom still can't get the win, but I can't help but feel like if we do see that direction picked up by Freedom, Tempo is not going to make it look, you know, as convincing as maybe it did against LFM here. As Genji is in fact going to be banned out here. Not let through over the last 2 games.
With the Maiev ban, it feels like for Team Freedom is that they almost feel obligated to first ban it instead of in their second ban slot, in the first ban period, right?
Yeah.
Is that they don't want to have any counter plays to where it's like, oh, well, they didn't ban this, so now we have to play Maiev. And they don't want to play Maiev. Instead, with the Diablo ban, we're willing to let the Medivh through. For Tempo Storm Dreadnought, in their first 2 picks, it almost feels like maybe something, if they're going to a counter, I don't know if they'll get Junkrat post-second ban, it does warrant a potential consideration for Tempo Storm.
That's a really good point that you bring up, whether or not the Junkrat is something that they would like to go to. Once you see the Rainer picked up, though, I think the the Warrior choke would be a little bit too dire after seeing the Diablo banned in the second rotation. So Tempo, they stick a little bit to the norm here, not going to go with the Junkrat. We'll see if Freedom does, in fact, want to ban that in the triple ban phase, being one of the better counters. But I just want to raise the confidence level from Tempo Storm to risk a Medivh letting through on this draft after not only the Hammer Medivh synergy that we've seen already from Team Freedom, but this is, again, this is series on the line here for Tempo Storm. This is not the draft I would be like, you know what, I want Medivh to be an option where he wasn't in the first 3 games.
These 3 picks, Dread.
They have a lot of really unique synergies.
Medivh's like, well, you're taking damage, here's a Force of Will. Yrhel's like, well, after level 4, if I jump on top of you, you get 35 armor. Killing a Sergeant Hammer is no easy task. And Yoda is one of the better Medivh players that we have. So even the self-sustain or making sure the self-surviving is very much there for a player like Yoda. And of course, again, Yrhel passing that out. No Junkrat ban, instead the Blaze.
Curious removal of the Blaze there. I feel like that shows that a lot of that hinges on the off macro pressure that's going to be provided, because they do have a Medivh Hammer composition. A 1-1-3 is pretty predictable. But Yrhel is not, I mean, everybody knows she's pretty much a bully in the offlane, right? But she doesn't dominate macro. She isn't terrible at it, but she doesn't dominate it. So I think by banning out the Blaze, beyond removing a safety tool from your opponents, which you absolutely want with a Portal Medivh composition, but it also removes some of the macro dominance that you might get in that downtime if your 1-3 isn't working out. You never want to see that, oh, Hammer's eventually getting there, but Yrhel's just like, I'm getting so pushed in. Like, I need somebody to help this out. So
I think it's important to note, if we don't see a Junkrat, the ability of a Medivh Hammer Yrhel is not necessarily to go through the portals aggressively, It'd probably be more defensively, so it doesn't.
Wholly defensive composition. This might be Bloodlust even.
Whoo! Arthas. Sometimes we get an Arthas. It's very rare. I think Endemic is the only one that's run it in Phase 2 so far. I've seen it in in EU as well. Maybe we've had a second game here. But Endemic was one of the first ones that ran it against the heavy melee comp, which is where he shines.
This is, there's the Junkrat into the last slot here. Okay, a lot to talk about with the composition from Team Freedom. Arthas is one of the, I know he's so out of meta that most people don't realize this, but long ago, ladies and gentlemen, there was a time Arthas was one of the best warriors in the game, and at that time, Sergeant Hammer used to be one of the best assassins in the game. And when that happened, those synergy together, it's very difficult. I mean, think about it. You have to move through the Arthas to hit the Hammer. It's probably going to take a while. You're probably dead by the time you get to that point. So really good peeling capabilities there. But the biggest thing for me, there's a whole lot of, I don't want to say cheese, but creative approach to the battleground available for Freedom. I don't have any insight on whether or not that is going to be the direction they go. And like I was talking about, it doesn't even have to be Bloodlust, but there is a lot of backdooring unique macro choices available with this composition. And I'm excited. This is one of my favorite comps is a older Protect the Hammer. You know, if we're going to watch it get wild, I want to see it with Medivh. So
the synergy, it goes beyond. And I think this is the really clever part that goes into it. One thing that Arthas lacks is mobility. One thing that Medivh gives you is mobility. The other thing is that Rhaegar and Arthas both contribute to the objective. Arthas has that big AoE, can definitely take care of that. We see the lightning shield go on. We'll get into game number 4 here, see if Team Freedom might be able to pull off this victory over Tempo Storm, but it is a lot around the Arthas composition. It's a very well thought out strategy. There's a lot of synergies that go much deeper, and we'll see how much Team Freedom can establish their control with it.
And I think the reason that, you know, we aren't talking about it in, I guess, a more straightforward manner, the best reason to justify that is because there's a lot of different directions it can go. Like a simple example, I think, for a Protect the Hammer composition that you can run like this is with Yrel's armor post 4, like we've been talking about. You pair that with a Circle of Protection. How do you kill that composition, right? If you're cycling the armor onto every other target with only 1 second downtime, and anytime it gets wild in between, you can risk that Circle of Protection composition, it's hard to move on to the Hammer. And then when you consider it even more, the Arthas slowing you down in your way into it, the mobility provided, just a lot of playmaking opportunity here for Team Freedom. That in mind, a lot of synergy also required from the style of composition, one that I think that they definitely have, but something that Tempo Storm needs to find ways to be able to break up into the team fight. When it looks like it's a 1-2 punch, Tempo's got to find a way to slip fan there on that Junkrat in between and make it a 1/ where the heck is my other punch?
I am curious. You say Bloodlust, and then I start thinking, all right, how do we make this work?
Whoa.
I mean, well, here's the thing. Arthas, right, has Icebound Fortitude at level 7. There's going to be the portal. He's rooted and knocked back, which is why Junkrat does so well. See if Zugrug has an answer here. There's going to be the slow, the follow-up. Glaurung has that extra mobility.
He missed it.
Though.
The pass, oh, that is one dead Zugrug now. Just how much time can he buy? Nasmus making his way up. But I think what you're going to talk about was the auto attack opportunities available. Rune Tap with the percentage max HP gained for Arthas. Actually pairing that with Icy Talons at level 4 plus the Lust on top of it. If we're going to see a Lust, that would be the way that that happens. But it's very important to note you only pick typically that talent, which is not the meta by any means, when there's no crowd control. Not only because Icebound Fortitude deals with crowd control, but also it's hard to auto attack and get Rune Tap value when you just aren't auto attacking anything. So Muradin, Deckard, all those tools that we see available for Tempo make me go, probably not. But whenever I see a Medivh Hammer comp and Rhaegar picks over some other supports, I go, oh, we might be able to Bloodlust this.
I think, oh, wait a minute. Yoda already used his portal, and Glaurung's coming in. See if he can survive this. There's going to be the force, wait for the mobility, and this should be a kill here. And it is. That's going to be kill number 2 here for Tempo Storm. Once they saw that portal, they snapped on that.
One thing I would like to highlight is the patience displayed there by Glaurung on that drag. What you saw in the first juke attempt was over the predictable rotation. Once you break the sidewall into the turret, that's when you want to juke away because it's the most common pathing direction that a computer will have whenever you click back to safety. So what he does is jukes the first time, and then you see him actually try and juke a second time. Glaurung called out Yoda. He's going to juke again and just didn't do anything for that amount of time. So confidence being displayed, and it's gaining him something here.
One of my favorite movie quotes. Just do nothing. Okay, we can't just do nothing, but do nothing. I'll tell you about it later.
All right.
It's Forgetting Dreadnought Marshall, the name of it.
How do I get on that train?
Dread movie star. I'm ready for it. Already got the hair for it.
Seven skeletal defenders here. Oh man, Glaurung with the brush stock up. Collusion got hit, but interrupted there by the knockback from Lutano. No drag available due to the lack of feeding frenzy from Glaurung. Not due to a lack of talent, just due to level 7 talent here.
You know what has been interesting, especially when we saw the Korean use of it with the Anubarak, is that Anubarak, now mind you, they took away physical armor from Arthas, and so he still has block, obviously, at level 1, Rhyme, his version. But the lack of mobility or heroes that might be more susceptible. When we started to see the Anubarak, the pairing in Korea is definitely like, okay, Yrel, come in with me. I can't really survive on my way out, so give me 35 armor. And Arthas can further benefit from that if we don't see that picked up at level 7, the Icebound Fortitude, but you could even stack that armor, which will be particularly interesting to see how Team Freedom does approach this with the Yrel, because the Yrel allows you to play warriors differently than any other hero, it feels like. I mean, Blaze has Bunker, but the duration, the time difference between when you actually get that versus Yrel dishing out armor potentially every second, and the duration that it lasts does allow a different approach to the front line.
Another thing that changes when looking at the Arthas variable coming online for these fights is one thing that Arthas is amazing at, if he can get on you, right? If he doesn't have to Howling Blast to get a value out of his Frozen Tempest, and he can get onto any target from Tempo Storm. Think about which heroes actually just lose. Like, they literally just die to the hand of Arthas. It's not often a warrior can demand that much respect, but Arthas very much can. Raynor still actually struggles, ladies and gentlemen, and that is because of the auto attack debuff. It just makes it too difficult for Raynor to totally get that damage output out. Junkrat has a concussion mine, but if he doesn't, he's very easily dead in most of those situations. Deckard just struggles from beginning to end as well. So if they portal Arthas onto somebody, beyond the armor survivability and how much that's impacting everybody else, it also just changes how, mainly, I guess I'm viewing this from June's eyes. I change how I approach my positioning and my fighting because I know if Raynor ever needs my resources, there's no, hey, hold your own for a second. It's, he's dead to the Arthas, and the same goes for myself. So that's going to change at least positioning and some of the decisioning on June's half throughout this game.
Well, real briefly, so we touch up on that effect, is that even Glaurung recognized that you said he didn't have Feeding Frenzy yet. He's not even opting. He knows that you require auto attacks to get the cooldown on that drag, instead going into that Dark Swarm talent, so he'll have cooldown reduction instead. For these teams, experience fairly even despite those few kills. Team Freedom was the one that did get some early push value in that sieging department, plus picked up the Punisher, so they've managed to maintain a neutral battleground for now, but they have started to chip away more and more at these front lines. Collusion, see if a cleanse is needed. We got the self-cleanse there. Cattle trying to get in range, unable to do so.
It's really interesting to see that deviation on that level 7 from Glaurung. Not only because the Arthas on the other side, but what it does do is also slightly kind of infers the idea of, you know, way back when adaptation was the go-to, this talent was a common pickup because you draw so much aggro, hit a lot of value out of your W. Don't think we're going to see that level of change there as Freedom quickly dealing with the pepper distribution coming out from Vin.
Well, June was holding his level 7, maybe thinking in the same line that you were thinking is, what if they go Bloodlust? Do I need to change this up? Do I need to go Emerald? Do I need to try and do something? Instead, he goes into the cube before Ancestral was locked in, so not necessarily able to deny that healing with that debuff of the Emerald, instead getting the scroll cooldown there.
Stop the aggression a little bit more. Wonder if that, with the deathballing of some of the approach that Team Freedom post portals later on, see how that kind of works out into these team fights. Glaurung going to get tracked down. There is the E opportunity, now saving the Howling Blast for the interrupt onto the brush stock. Not going to be forced as Tempo Storm made their way all the way up. But now we got ourselves a shrine, and this is really where Tempo Storm, I feel like, needs to be able to get a breaking point here through this game, get some control over Freedom.
Well, we've seen it before. We're going to see adaptation used again, but Medivh, I mean, I heard he was there, and then he was gone.
It was about as quick as you kind of worded there. Stormbolt came through, no opportunity for the Force of Will. Follow-up crowd control is there. And the job's done. 8 seconds until Team Freedom is going to get themselves their Medivh. And as you said, it is in fact the adaptation there for the Dahaka. I'm not going to lie, I didn't fully expect that level of change, but I don't dislike it, especially considering the Arthas and the composition we get from Freedom.
And now it looks like Team Freedom will concede, not even willing to poke too much over that wall. Just one of the things that they did do is they're saying, look, we're going to lose the Punisher. We might as well clear out the minions, making sure that they don't have minions to push in behind this Punisher, which can help empower the objective there. Instead, they'll be able to bait it right over. Should be a pretty easy clear here for Team Freedom.
Not if Ben's got anything to say about it. He's got a super fancy spaceship that's going to just float a big scary circle over the ground and make Team Freedom second guess their positioning. After that hammer, maybe Cattle second guessing it. Nasmus takes the portal back. Stormbolt thrown out onto Zugrug, but Tempo satisfied with what they were able to make happen. Now look for an invade here. Should be pretty easy pickup because the 13's closing in, but maybe Medivh's got something else to say about it. Dahaka's already brushed Dock in, so if Freedom initiate, it's a 4 versus 5 in favor of Tempo.
I think the minute that we saw Dahaka show, or that maybe they had the audible cue, they just realized it wasn't worth it, so they'll give that up. There's no well there for that to snipe. It's just a matter of taking away control potentially from your opponent there. Also with Tempo Storm rounding 13, no need to risk it.
Play it safe here for Tempo. Portal going to help the escape, if you will, from the mid lane. Great Stormbolt there from Gato. It's just the small stacking whenever he can. That kind of stuff adds up, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the concern we've had towards the Muradin has been, in fact, his late game scaling. And when Cattle just pokes and prods like that, Stormbolt after Stormbolt, she hurts. Medivh will get the scout, but Freedom not in position to get a 13 kind of portal initiation there.
Seems like the pacing of this game, Towers of Doom, frenzied, furious, combative, back and forth. This one, a little more measured approach, 3 kills to 0 for Tempo Storm. Team Freedom obviously drafted for the slower approach. And speaking of slower, Cattle's death, that came very quick there as we take our glance there. First blood here for Team Freedom, finally 10 minutes into the game.
The only way that gets a little bit better, though, is if Nasmus follows up with a B-step. Just catching Cattle out, or Zugrug, somebody, you know, after that catch out of the last game, and the B-steps shown by Tempo. You know, just kind banter. Not a lot of banter, just a small amount. Freedom find their first kill of this game, but still, it's one of those moments where it's like, it's a kill, but it's not getting them control, right? It's going back to a bit more of a stalemate, if you will, or a standoff here. Glaurung did end up using the brush stock for this bottom camp. Would expect Muradin to probably make the rotation on and get punishment. With that downtime, though, maybe Team Freedom would like to be a bit more aggressive on the top half instead of looking for a defensive stance. This is interesting. It's safer because they have double mercenaries pressuring against them, but I do think it might limit what they can earn.
I'm curious if they're going to make this rotation to potentially try and take the well or the fort down to get control going into this next shrine phase. Instead, they're met by Tempo Storm directly in the middle. Kato comes in with another stack there. 18 on his level 1, 21 on his baseline because of that one follow-up kill behind that. So no control at camp still being dealt with at the top by Junkrat. You're going to see Glaurung try and take positions with him, use that global. So for Team Freedom, they're trying to come in. They got the lockdown. Here comes the portal, but the return knockback there and root between Vin and Jun will thwart the attack.
Well, with the Dahaka Junkrat off lane getting the side clear, that's going to force Freedom to start this up very quickly and get a lot of these skeletal defenders into their favor, in theory, for free. That's what they would like to say, or what they would like to have happen. Whether or not they'll actually get it, though, I can't help but feel like that's not going to be the case. You'll watch Tempo Storm, a little bit of clear, probably about a wave, at most wave and a half there, a full wave on mid. You can risk the other halfway because it's so close to the objective. Then you see that dive in, and essentially it's removing, well, as I throw my pen, 2 full mini waves of experience from Team Freedom, which normally I wouldn't be, you know, that concerned with. But considering that we've made it into this game roughly 13, you know, kind of level 13, and that we've really only got 2 kills, that seems like the best way to gain an advantage at this point in time, because no team really pulling ahead outside of those skeletal defenders.
It will be interesting to see the pacing on that, because we know that this is a patient, slow, clear approach, but it does also have the Arthas that, if staying on point, especially with the lightning shield, can increase the rate at which those skeletal defenders go down. So the approach from Tempo Storm, remember, they spawn If you kill some and they kill some, well, it just goes longer because they don't just infinitely spawn, obviously coming in waves of 10, depending on how they clear out. But if every one that you can take away from your opponent. So it's important, I think, for Tempo Storm to at least have the poke potential to take down some. They have the zoning control, obviously, between Muradin, who can survive better now with healing static, but also what we've seen from June, making sure to get the roots, the slows out. As long as they can poke and take some down, if they are playing towards that 16 tier, it might be too far off for them to take that approach. But we have seen teams do that before, where it's like, look, I'm not trying to win the Shrine right away. What I'm trying to do is take about 20 of those away from you, that denies you, and then they play the long game and then rotate down with that talent tier advantage.
The one thing that I find interesting with the approach that we've gotten in the strat from Team Freedom is that we're yet to ever really see, I think, come to light, right? When you think about the laning situation, we talked about dominance more often than not. It's either a 2-1-2 or a 1-1-3 for the hammer, make it empowered, able to get pressure out. Tempo didn't allow that to happen for free very often here, so we're getting back in the game. Dahaka actually brush talk already in. Look at that portal initiation, but that was what I was saying. We haven't seen the whole game. And Glorong pre-preps a drag, hits Zugrug.
I mean, that doesn't get any prettier than that. He also has armor reduction at 13, so every time he hits with that Dark Swarm, speaking of armor reduction, we're talking about health reduction by way of that Junkrat, but instead I believe that got interrupted there by Nasmus.
Experience advantage in favor of Tempo Storm here as Nasmus moves up. Lutano enters the portal there, falling pretty low. Kato's trying to throw out the Stormbolt. Now Glorong seems to be the focus. 1 second left for the adaptation as the Hyperion goes down. Tempo Storm down 10. Skeletal Defender. Zugrug moves up. The Lornado splits, but look at this flank from Nasmus. The 3-man hammer, the Ardent Defender, but Concussion Mine knocks him back.
The clear on the side of Team Freedom has just been way too much to overcome around this Shrine. That just goes to show that getting the Storm Caller, making sure that getting that extra manage back, we'll see if it's a matter of sustaining on that, getting there, the Earthen Shield as well. We'll see if that continues to go. We've seen teams start to adapt with Rhaegar since a lot of his changes not long ago, continuing to go that into 16, and indeed we do, making sure to get that extra damage now going forward.
And Jay, that's a little bit of what I was trying to touch up on when talking about this draft before it started. If we look at the gameplay from Freedom, they're drafting and playing to win objectives quickly, even if it doesn't win them the entirety of the fight and the momentum. They'll take a 1-for-1, but we always get the objective. It hasn't been so clean here in the 4th game, but they have very much shown that their approach to this old macro style, it's still there, but it's very different. It's macro through the objective and through the sacrifice of maybe 1 to 2 heroes in a fight for the greater cause of the colony here, if you will.
It's when we saw the Medivh hammer approach at Western Clash, it was on Battlefield of Eternity. We were 20 minutes into the game and it was 17-17 because they just held around there, and this is probably one of the Team Freedom. They might be nicknamed Team Patience at times because sometimes they do take a very patient approach. Previously, it used to be almost to a fault, but now they know when to be aggressive more often than not. But when they play this style, Dread, it is insanely patient. And for now, they've gotten, what, 3 Punishers now? So patient. They only managed 1/4 though so far.
Something they're going to be looking to change. Because the first Punisher, they weren't as successful with their composition. They scaled up a little bit better as time went on. I can't help but feel like that's going to be more and more of a problem. Nice portal there. Look at this cutoff here from Team Freedom, trying to maybe question if Fan's going to be out too far. Not quite the case. Team Freedom now will just claim the 4 for their own and make the rotation out. They aren't winning hard enough in experience to be so, what's the 20 race, what's our fear? It's just close enough, and the objective is slow enough that Tempo can depend on that, especially with their Dahaka off-lane opportunities.
I will say, for Team Freedom, though, around that, it was 15-15 on that last Punisher. The portals have been far less defensive and far more aggressive as the threatening, even diving on that backside. So it's definitely been a change of pace for Team Freedom. Some more things to play around, more tools to use, especially. Dahaka's coming in with a brush stock here, Fred.
And he's actually going to hit the drag onto Lutano. Ancestral Force along with the cleansing opportunities. Now Zugrug on the back line with the polybomb. Nasmus hits the hammer out. Glorong stuck by himself there. Adaptation healing him to full. BFG hitting all 4 members of Tempo Storm. Nasmus hits the leap through and gets the first kill here over Tempo Storm. June trying to get the retreat. Zugrug, as I said, unable to let that happen. That is 1 dead Decker. Tempo lose 2 members in Freedom. Now absolutely going to siege up with this hammer.
There's going to be another portal in. Level 16 for Zugrug. If you get stuck in that AoE, after a few seconds, you're going to get rooted. And that's the thing, is like he is going to sit on, you cannot walk away from it. It is a miserable feeling when you have an Arthas that can literally sit on top of you. And then by the time 16 comes in, you're rooted. It's allowed the follow up there, those 2 kills, Team Freedom again. The pacing has changed for them, and with those kills and that control, Dread, they're also looking at 20.
I also want to raise, I was going to say, right as that happened, actually, it was very convenient, the approach to an isolation Dahaka brush stock versus an adaptation, because they're actually very different. A Glorong on a adaptation kind of Dahaka, normally what you do is you want to brush stock in and everybody focus you immediately while you're getting value out of your heroic, then use your E to buy a little bit of time, make sure you get value. But your brush stock is used to get that positional advantage. Isolation Dahakas use it for the drag isolation one-shot, one-kill. And we keep seeing Glorong use the Dahaka brush stock like an isolation one, and I wonder, would he be gaining more value if, again, looking for kind of drawing attention to himself rather than trying to catch out heroes like Lutano?
Lutano hit those thrusters the minute Tempo Storm showed bottom. The scariest part for Tempo Storm is sometimes you have to make this trade to get onto 20-tier advantage. The problem is that Team Freedom has a Shaman camp with them, and that just makes the push even scarier. It has been dealt with as we see Fan and team come over with the Junkrat, so it does help with the clear, but now this Punisher is prepped for Tempo Storm. They did get that bottom port, Dread. They have themselves a decent chunk of XP. Might be able to get back onto 20 in the middle of this team fight, but the threat of those aggressive portals is always there with Zuggerud.
It is terrifying whenever you see this circumstance. The Punisher marching in, Hammer wailing away, and that Owl above just constantly laying down that portal you can see. Knowing there might be a second half to it laid down. There's going to be the first portal. Drop, nobody going to pull it yet. Kato falling very low. A lot of damage with the Poly Bomb, and that is the kill there. Team Freedom with that pick, they might be looking for game. Sergeant Hammer can siege not only this keep, but possibly core, J-How.
Just watch for the portals as they come in. See if they can follow up on it. Glaurung comes in, does have that adaptation, so of course can use that to survive. There's the portal. They are ignoring the fight. They are sieging up here as the Punisher sitting at about 20% health. It is on the core. Shields have fallen. There's going to be the Storm Shield as well. As Lutano and team, they are getting on this, and there's going to be 2-3 members down on the side of Tempo Storm, and Team Freedom trying to close it out right here.
Team Freedom have done it here, ladies and gentlemen, with the Abathur, or with the Medivh, Hammer, and Arthas composition on Infernal Shrines. Will take game number 4 here over Tempo Storm. And more importantly, after Tempo taking out Heroes Hearth last week, now we got Frito taking out Tempo Storm. It is making the top of North America look very, very back and forth here and competitive, J-How.
Some of the future matchups are so compelling. Look, Heroes Hearth, by way of map score, is still way ahead. If the match score stays the same, but if upsets start to come in, one person takes a game down, Team Freedom gets a win, the maps start to look differently, all of NA might look different. Tempo Storm, objectively, is still technically in things as well. I mean,
yeah,
that's the top 3. It doesn't seem as clear, obviously, with Heroes Hearth up there, but for Team Freedom, it's like they found the water, it's clear, they went down, they kicked their feet a little, and it got a little dirtier, a little muddier, and so the picture is not nearly as clear, and that creates excitement, I think, when we start to look towards that, because North America, unfortunately, we only have 1 automatic qualifier, but you get that 1 automatic qualifier, you're in. You don't, you got to play through the playoffs no matter what seed you are. So very different feel getting that number 1 seed.
And I think when looking at the entirety of the landscape in North America, this puts a lot of things out into weird kind of positions, because Tempo was maybe using some of the validation of last week's performance as justification for the direction they're now headed as a roster and as a team. But then you drop games to Team Freedom, you don't even make it to game number 5. Like, I would argue that was a pretty confident, outside of Outmacro and Dragonshire, very well done on Team Freedom from beginning and end of that series. So then you go, are we actually on the right direction, right? And I can't help but feel like 1, 2, and 3 of North America, we may know the names, or at least 4 names to kind of fit in there somewhere in some way, shape, or form, but order, who knows?
Just we'll put some names in a hat. We'll pick out one or the other, and that's pretty much the raid, although Heroes Hearth probably has a few more in there as well. But obviously with today's matchup, Team Freedom, we saw Tempo Storm. They came out, they dominated game 1. There was no doubt about it. It was Dragonshire, their favorite battleground, but the one chosen by Team Freedom. The minute things switched, we saw Tempo Storm, they started to take control of that map pick once they started to lose. And that's generally where they've been best. They come in with the strategies, but the Battlefield of Eternity game coming back there, it was just so impressive the way that we saw Team Freedom. Maybe they just needed to wake up. That was kind of maybe the story last week, and they just needed to wake up. One person who is very much awake is going to be Lutano, who's going to be joining us from Team Freedom here. Lutano, Congratulations on this big victory against Tempo Storm today.
Thank you. It was a tough set, but we pulled it through.
Well, let's talk about you guys' strategy. I poked around a little bit when we came back from Clash. I talked to Collusion a little bit, and we jokingly talked about some of the strategies, most notably your Medivh Hammer comp, which you guys pulled out in game number 3. It seems like it's a very, very patient approach. But there was something right around level 15. The portal started to get aggressive. The way that you guys played it started to get aggressive. What's different about this comp that you had with the Arthas Rhaegar that allowed you guys to maybe change the pacing of it as the later game hit?
Well, pretty much we were just kind of scared for some reason. I don't know. We were like, pretty much, I was like, guys, it's time to start using our portals. What's going on? We haven't been using our portals this game. We're not pressing our E button. So once we said that, I think the game was over from there. We just started popping off and punishing their positioning. So yeah, well, we practice that comp a lot. We love it.
It worked out well for you. And speaking of popping off, let's go back to that towers game, because we watched you guys. It seemed like maybe if you get those sappers across, maybe you end bot lane. But then Cattle makes an insane play, gets a pick. And then Nasmus gets picked mid. And as those death timers start to come in, you guys are holding we saw the whole 3v5. That was actually on the other side. But what is going through in the comms in that moment where we see that play on Towers of Doom, the chaos it creates?
I've said it before at Western Clash. I'll say it again. Monk S in the chat. We were really, really, really scared that we were going to lose that game. It worked out. Cattle made a really insane play on Diablo there. He punished my misuse of my cooldowns. I didn't react fast enough with the W on his Hellgate. Yeah, he played really well there. And then Naz was like, I can get the anchor, I can stall. But he got caught. It was all right. Zugrug was a god, lived with 1 HP. We came back, and it was pretty sick.
Well, things obviously worked out for you today. I'm going to send you over to Dread.
Congratulations there, Lutano. My questions have got to be about the mix-up. It's not so much a major mix-up, but when it comes to the Dragonshire selection into Tempo Storm, was there any consideration towards the fact that of like trying to get a draft priority mix-up against Tempo Storm, take them to one of their favorite battlegrounds, even though you guys aren't too shabby on it either? Just, what was the decision-making behind that pick -- 1 against them? That
was exactly our decision-making.
Okay.
We were like, hey, they don't draft us from first pick because no one's crazy enough to pick D-Shire against Tempo. So like maybe they're not that practiced on it, maybe not, but we're like, we can lose game 1. We like using it to warm up. We're a game 2 team for sure. So.
All right. I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to hear if you guys had some other justification, like the decision making there, and then also mainly the comms from you. The moment where you threw out the BFG, where you see, I believe it was June walking back, looking for a tap on as well, and then you not max range, but like hit it the fadeaway BFG. What were you feeling? What were you thinking there in that moment? Because that for me was one of the highlights. I feel like.
I'm like, this guy's dead. I'm shooting my ult at him.
Just full confidence.
He was dead.
Even if he's in fog, you're like, nah, I got him. Kobe.
Yeah. I know where he's going. He's going to the well. He's dead.
I respect it, and it was great level play there. Congratulations again there, Lutan.
Dread appealing to the SoCal fans here by the Kobe reference, by the way. Lutano, though, your play, it seems like you've evolved. When we talked to you at the Western Clash, it was a matter of you coming out, trying to be more of a vocal leader. What's it been like coming back from the Clash? Have you been able to establish more of that by being more of a vocal voice for your team?
I think a big problem before Clash was I'm pretty headstrong, and I like doing things exactly my way, and I like calling the macro rotations, I like calling the positioning in team fights, I like doing all these things. And Asmus was drafting, and I was like, I just want to do everything. And then they're like, okay, just do everything. They kind of gave up, and it's been working out. But honestly, the reason it works so well is because the team trusts me. They trust in what I call, they trust in what I draft. And they're a great group of players, and honestly, I couldn't do without them.
Well, they get to trust you again tomorrow. You guys will be facing off against Endemic, a team that at times has come out with some interesting strategies of their own. Your initial thoughts, obviously, with this big double weekend for you guys between Tempo and Endemic. You got one big fish out of the way, but Endemic is no slouch. Thoughts on that series for tomorrow?
That's definitely going to be a tough series. Endemic is a really strong team, and I also have heard a rumor that there's something going on with their roles. So we'll see how it turns out.
We'll look forward to that tomorrow, but today you get to celebrate and prepare for tomorrow. Lutano, congratulations. The floor is yours for shout-outs.
Shout out to my awesome team. Shout out to my coach, Levies, or our coach, Levies. Shout out to Team Freedom. They do so much for us. And shout out to Twitch chat. Love you guys.
Congrats, Lutano. Dread, Lutano was somebody that I casted in early open division last year. I thought, my goodness, this guy is a playmaker. I was like, this guy belongs at the HGC level. Little did I know that he would find his way in, albeit not to the most success initially. But once he found the team that he belonged to, it's like the evolution. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, this guy belongs here, he's here. He's good, but is he actually better? And then he gets to a team where he can live up to that. And I'm like, oh, man, this guy is exactly where we thought he would be. Now all of a sudden he's like, by the way, I'm also doing more. So the evolution of Lutano for me to go from a playmaker, guy working his way up on the grind. Everybody respected the grind that Lutano put in. Now coming in to the HGC, now moving up to one of the top teams, and also being a key component to that, as well as his teammates that he credits. It's been nice to see that evolution for a guy like him.
I think the coolest thing for me when we see that kind of come out is a lot of roster changes that we see happen where we go, is this player actually maybe not shining to the same level? Because he seems like an outlier in a struggling roster. And when you get those, they're usually hidden gems, right, that are very much kind of great performers. But when you put them with others of maybe equal peers, rarely does it seem to work out. Like that level of cohesion, it's like more that guy kind of has to bring his roster up to the top, prove himself, and then somehow can garner enough respect to be able to get that kind of adjustment. I feel like Europe is a prime example of a region that has suffered from that. But to see that from such a individual and a young guy like Lutano and then have that level of success, I look at it and I go, I don't want it to stop, right? But I can't help but fear every time I go, like, when does that kind of level of progression and, again, synergy come to an end? Because it has been unprecedented, really, that level of progression.
It is, and we see the stats to back it up originally. We've seen the play and everything to back it up until then. We've got one great series out of the way, but we've got Octalysis coming up next, and that is a series, Dreadnought, I don't think anybody wants to miss. Do we get the main tank Zool? Will we get main tank anything? Who knows? We're going to find out soon. We'll be back after this break for that last series of the day.